Hey folks, how's it going? I'm just gonna make sure everyone can hear me all right and turn up the volume here in Zoom. I hope you all can hear me well. My controls here say that you can hear me all. The track is quite a vibe actually. I stumbled upon it after a really long time, and I thought it's the best track to start a webinar with, just to make sure everybody is at the same energy level as me after, I don't know, probably three coffees in a row. I've had a very packed day, but I was really looking forward to this. We've put together some amazing insights to walk you all through, just as always. I might be able to give some of your time back to you because what we have today is more of best practices. Because we felt often that's what's overlooked. And then again, the idea is for me to ramble on about this, uh, you know, uh, for about what, 30, 40, 50 minutes, uh, ideally less. And I'm sure there'll be a few insights, nuggets that I'll be able to give away while I do that. So yeah, this is recorded. That's right. The recording takes some time for us to process and publish, but yeah, this document is also something that I'll be able to share. But do we ever go back and watch recording? So yeah, I'll try and cover up as much as I can, Stephanie, before you leave. I'll try and be as while being as insightful as possible. Okay, so now let's let's get into the title. Why did we think about first-time customers? And I think there are some obvious reasons for that. The biggest one being the ungodly amount of money we all spend on driving traffic, the Google and Facebook tax that we all pay to bring customers to the business, to the site for the first time. So I think that's obviously a major reason for us to we felt this is an important thing to talk about, but there are two other really big reasons. The first one is Google giving up on third-party cookies. That's what I wrote in the last newsletter as well. I think it's a very serious change in the way advertising is going to work, in the way retargeting is going to work, in the way advertising networks are going to work. For example, these days, I think they've always been spooky, but more often than not, advertising networks are getting spookier because I don't know if you know how advertising networks work, but essentially everything, all the transactions you make, your from point of sale solutions, um, you know, to online transactions that you're making on my browser, for example, you can see Facebook Pixel Helper installed. So that's essentially tracking me across the board, kind of seeing everything that I'm looking at. And as a matter of fact, one of my friends, his wife is pregnant, and they're expecting. So we thought we should give them a nice gift, and I started looking for cribs. And the internet obviously thought that it's our family that's expecting. So I've been seeing ads for almost every product on the face of earth that a baby could need or a baby's mother could need. So it's crazy, right? But that's going to change. I think it's going to change for the good because when the god of internet themselves say that third-party cookies is done, that will obviously have a change in the way your ads work and the way you're able to bring traffic back. Number one. Number two, the other massive change that's being made is how emails are going to work. And I don't know if you know this, but I know you're probably set up on a Klaviyo or an Omnisend or a Drip or a MailChimp, or maybe we might be managing emails for some of you. I know I have some familiar people on the call. But generally speaking, if you spend more than if you have a if your email volume is upwards of a certain threshold, and we are publishing a very detailed guide about this very soon, so we will send that over to you. But if your total email volume is above a certain daily threshold, and if the percentage of people marking your email spam is higher than 0.3%, the gods of internet, the gods of email, Google, Yahoo, etc., all of the major email providers, they could go as far as blocking your domain from emails for essentially an undeclared amount of time. So that's insane. What that does is it makes it very hard for you to bring repeat traffic. Now, think about the reason emails are important is because they are the cheapest way for you to bring transactions and conversions. They are easily. You're right. Actually, it's 3 out of 1,000. You're right, Dimitri. But marking spam is actually something that's more common than we all agree. And I think a lot of businesses um, really go out of their way to annoy customers. We've seen customers sending. In fact, I've spoken to customers that send out a promotion every 2 days. And when you focus on frequency and how much and the volume of emails, you sometimes put content on the back burner, quality of content or personalization. So, anyways, the intention was that emails are going to change. They're just trying to bring some discipline into emailing. And I think it's a good thing. Your volume will have to be, you'll have to be watchful about your volume of emails, and you cannot take the chance. That's the important part is, because we work with customers, generally speaking, that have an email list of upwards of 100,000, in some cases upwards of 50,000. And if you're doing two promotions a week, you are touching roughly 400 to 500,000, touch points in a month. So now you can apply that same percentage, and that's not a lot of spam. That I really don't think it's hard to hit that number. Okay, so let's get into our topic, which is first-time customers. What can you do to convert them effortlessly? So we've broken that down into three parts. I'm going to run through some of the obvious stuff very fast. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. There is also a Q&A section, so I'll pick it up if it's about what I'm talking about, and if it's if it's something that we can take up later, I'll obviously pick it up at the end. Okay, so let's jump right in. Let's just start with the homepage, and I have some interesting examples. I wanted to use fresh examples, so we've tried to keep it fresh. We've tried to bring in stuff that that kind of makes it easy. Now, you have to. Okay, so when you're talking about conversions for the first time, even before we get into the experience, we have to first very clearly articulate, at least for our marketing team and for whoever is working on driving demand to the site, what is the intent with which you're bringing customers. So if their intent is you showed them a deal on a Facebook ad, and they saw that deal and they clicked and came to the product page, the intent is very clear. They want to exploit the offer that's available to them and kind of do that. But if it's some other reason that they came to your site, if they organically searched for you and then came to your site, so there are several ways in which people will enter your site. They will carry varied forms of intent, varied reasons why they'll come. And now your job is to connect that intent to a result. As a matter of fact, one of the biggest things Google looks at when it's trying to consider your website for ranking, when it's trying to, one of the biggest SEO factors is time on site, which means that after somebody has chosen your search result or in the organic search and they came to your site, how much time did they spend on an average? Because if they spend too much time is when Google knows they found something they were looking for. But if that overall average is low, that means Google thinks they find that, most people are finding something they were not looking for. So that result is not good enough because Google's product is a good search result and they're going to optimize for that no matter what. With that said, now that you know the intent, some of the advice I'll give today is going to be brand related. Some of it is going to be just tactics, and some of it is going to be, something more thought out in terms of how the user psychology works or customer psychology works. In this case, we're talking about a cross section of brand and psychology. In a lot of cases, we feel that brands miss making a bold statement, which means they're taking too much time to put that core value prop out there and in front of the customer's mind, right? Chuck is on the call today. He runs an amazing brand. And so for example, if you make the world's best handcrafted products, right? And you're taking time for people to understand that, you're taking time, customers take, maybe a minute or 2 minutes to fully realize that how much of a big deal you are. That's an opportunity loss. So be a little bit, be a little bit more daring and, kind of put a message out there, put a statement out there that just makes you look better in the way that your value prop is communicated instantly. In this case, these people were actually the original creators of cold brew, nitro brew, coffees, and that's exactly what they're trying to put together. And if you see the CTA for people who know what they want is just give me my coffee, and they just go and kind of take their, buy whatever they're here for. But it does not deprioritize first-time buyers, because this is a brand that is obviously supposed to focus on repeat buyers, right? Liquid Death, for example, is a brand story we all know about, but they've got to work on acquisition as well, and hence the very, very loud and brash advertising, which actually works in their favor. So make a bold statement. Don't take too long to communicate why somebody should choose you. The second thing is give them a good reason to stay as early as possible. So, pop-ups are annoying. I think we all agree. I agree with that. I don't like pop-ups. But what we're trying to essentially do here, give them reasons to stick around. In this case, for example, the banner is used productively. In a lot of cases, we see banners are just carousels. They take up 80% of the homepage is first fold, and they're just doing nothing there. They're just, they're just moving from one place to another, showing the product, which is okay. If you feel your brand needs to communicate through images that strongly, be my guest. And everything is subjective at the end of the day. But I feel you've got to be able to give people a big reasons to stick around for a second and watch and wait and look. There is this mobile skin brand. So they do skins for your mobile phone, and it's called D brand. And I think they do a phenomenal job of both of these things. They give people a reason to stick around, and they make a very, very strong statement. So, for example, if you were to visit their website yesterday, because there's a new Samsung phone launching and all of those things, their website said Samsung hates us. And then they have the most outrageous, colorful mobile skins, and they have an amazing visual of that. And they're running like a limited time, limited edition skin for like just 3 days. So there's enough reason for people to just give them that 10 seconds to go from awareness to consideration in the marketing funnel. Otherwise, a lot of people stay at the awareness. They've given you those 10, 15 seconds. You've not been able to communicate what you instantly communicate what you stand for, and you've lost them. So, sorry to say, but TikTok has basically, yeah, it's made us all into goldfish. So, but yeah, that's what it is. I think the other thing is people use memberships in the wrong way. Memberships, apart from, doing what they do, which is, fostering loyalty of some kind and kind of giving offers. The other thing that they do is they lend a lot of trust. And for example, in this case, this graphic actually does not do a good job of doing that. For example, I would definitely want to talk about how many members are already a part of this membership. But generally speaking, if you see the benefit here, it's massive. 30% off is not a small offer. 30% off on most products is you won't even offer it because that eats into your margin in such a significant way. But here it's a massive offer and it's coupled with a membership. I think memberships are not used well enough. There are a lot of innovative ways to do it, to use memberships in the right way. The other thing that doesn't happen a lot is how you showcase your most major category. Generally speaking, I think some things businesses have gotten right is putting together some, call to actions that can instantly talk about categories, etc. But I think I foresee in the next 2 years, the visual, representation of things will elevate across the board, and you will, find it harder and harder to make a statement. And to be able to do that, the easy way is, to stick to contrasting, graphics. In this case, I think they do a phenomenal job. It's text based, but it does a great job of all the categories that are there. The other thing it does for the uninitiated customer, it instantly tell you everything you got, right? So for example, if you were to do fashion, all of the categories you have within that instantly visible. And if it's something I want to bite into, great. If not, it's not me. So that's obviously another really obvious one. The other thing I see brands not, and actually I spoke about this in I think the last to last webinar, is stop using pop-ups as pop-ups only. Generally speaking, I see when people think of pop-ups, they only think of email opt-ins. And I'll show you another example later in this conversation. But I think there are innovative ways of deploying pop-ups. This is one such way where you essentially communicated a sale and then you asked them to take the next step without asking for anything from them, without asking for their email and their social security number and everything else. So you're keeping it clean. You're just letting them take the next step. So what you've done here is, instead of having them look at your homepage, which is kind of talking about this overarching story, you are at least letting them filter the experience down one level and then go to the next step. So in this case, it's men, women, kids, and baby packs and gear. Let's say if I was on a store that's that's, for example, doing hardware, I would at least get them down one category. So if there's somebody's on your site to get into wood related work in the next over the weekend, you can at least get them into that category and start looking at the right products. So use pop-ups a little bit more productively. We've A/B tested for a lot of our customers something like this, and I think we're going to do a lot more of that going forward. The other thing I think people don't offer proactively, and this is also going to be, I'm going to cover this in another way later in the conversation, is you won't believe how people jump on opportunities like this, especially if you're selling a product that's upwards of $300 or $400. Being able to talk to someone about it really drives trust and conversions. What we have seen is only your highest intent customers will choose to talk to you. And these are people who were on the fence. So they had questions, but they didn't have a way to get an answer. So in this case, they came to us, and we were able to help them. So we were able to help them with a lot of things. So I think that's one of the things that I see brands not, and actually I spoke about this in the, I think the last to last webinar, is stop using pop-ups as pop-ups only. Generally speaking, I think people don't offer proactively, and this is also going to be, I'm going to cover this in another way later in the conversation, but the brand is offering styling services. I understand that it's not for everyone, but I feel that you have to be more approachable for your customers, and you've got to be able to have that conversation. So there are a lot of ways of doing this. For example, you could trigger something like this depending on how much time somebody spent on your site, depending on the kind of products that they're looking at, depending on where they've come from. For example, if it is paid traffic and they looked at a very specific offer, or they looked at a retargeting ad, and then they've clicked. So there's somebody who's bottom of the funnel, has been on the site 10 times before maybe, and now they've come back. So they're a first time customer for you, but they're a repeat visitor. There's a very strong case to show them a segmented pop-up saying, hey, I know who you are. If you need help, just tell us and we'll call you tomorrow morning. So something on those lines. I think offer proactive help. I think it's a fantastic way of building trust. And again, always remember, people don't buy from businesses, people buy from people. Lead with story, lead with your personal story, and put people, front and center. So there are many ways of doing that. And yeah, so this connects into that. Actually, it's a good segue. Is that education is something everybody's, generally speaking, if the intent, especially for brands that are in the home decor slash even fashion, actually to some degree, but generally speaking, brands where discovery can take longer, where discovery is a key part of the experience. With fashion, for example, when purchasing fashion, for example, there's a brand that I came across very recently that only does white shirts, t-shirts, polos, that kind of stuff. Okay. So there is really no discovery in that transaction, right? Because you need a polo. They have 2 or 3 types of polos. You can try the fit on and then just kind of, it's very transactional. After a point, you can just go back and ask them for the same kind of fit, and they'll show you a shirt, a Chinese collar shirt, a polo, and a round neck t-shirt. And you can just take your pick and walk away. So it's extremely transactional. But a lot of the high ticket fashion is actually very exploratory. For example, and I'll pull on a lot of examples about bags because I keep thinking about it again and again. But especially if you're going to spend $500 on a bag, you're going to look at everything you can do with your $500. You're going to look at peak design. You're going to look at Tumi. You're going to look at some of the gaudy looking fashion stuff. You're going to look at every other option you've got in bespoke leather, and then you're going to decide. So instead of having the customer do that in 10 other places, let them do that wherever they are. Why don't you enable your customer? Why don't you educate your customer? Why don't you make those 2, 3, 4, 5 videos that make them a better shopper? So if they're, for example, shopping for, I think this is a fantastic example here, but if they're shopping for home decor, here are the 10 things you can do. Our top 10 living room picks of January 2024. And everything that's in the pictures, at least some part, it either leads to a category you have or it leads to product that you have. So it would be a massive win. I think the other thing that businesses don't do, especially people who sell products at a slightly higher price, although the example here is of a lower priced option, is justifying the price they're selling at. Like in this case, I think I would have done a little bit different. They are actually trying to sell, they eliminate retailer markups, for example, celebrity marketing, etc. That's interesting. There's actually nobody behind me. Okay, that's spooky. But yeah, so there's retailer offers. In this case, they should actually justify why it's so cheap. Because if a retailer is selling it for $150 and you're going to be able to sell me at the same thing at $19, why is it so cheap? So I think they should justify it, but I think they should also talk about, in general, there has to be a way for you to justify price and justify quality. So if your price is high, quality and trust justify it. If your price is low, trust, volumes, statistics, all of those things will justify it. So you will have to corroborate it. Because if it's cheap, people are probably not expecting quality, and it's a transactional product, fundamentally speaking. Then the other thing that's happening here is, okay, so everybody runs pop-ups, everybody runs offers, but we don't take the effort to write copy that makes it extremely clear that it's only for your first purchase and it's only for your one-time purchase only. And I think you've got to really go out of your way to craft copy that delivers that message in a very powerful way. So this is a very quick one, and I'm just going to keep moving in order to save time for all of us. So this is another example of what I was saying, where you can actually make your CTAs or your email opt-ins a little bit more human, a little bit more interactive. What's really happening here is you are talking about the offer and then you're taking them down a level. You are essentially enabling them to pick something. What this does is, depending on what they picked, they will go into a different list. Like, for example, in the previous one, if I would have picked men and then opted in, you know that I'm that category. So you will just go all out in promoting that category to me in the email communication as well. And that's how you win me because you've already done one level of personalization. So the email marketing that we do for our customers, we are actually able to build that into the flows and the bulk emails automatically because we track their journey and then we have a personalization engine that automatically personalizes emails at scales. So this is one way of doing it if you don't have like a smart system that's running that for you. I think this is something that might or might not click for everyone. And also it's very hard for a lot of brands to do this. Like I had in the last webinar spoken about being carbon neutral, being environment focused, etc. If you're a brand that is fundamentally it's impossible for you to do that, you can still try by talking about environment friendly packaging, for example. You can still try by talking about, or in fact, there was this. The example that I gave in our last webinar was I know of a brand that actually makes people pick slower shipping because it's more environment friendly, and majority of their customers actually do that because they are a brand that is built around that entire image of being environment friendly. So people are actually happy to get their order in Feb or March because it's going to be environment friendly. It's carbon neutral delivery and so on and so forth. For each, so when they pick a faster option, it says, hey, you're going to be, this is your carbon impact. These are how many trees that will get cut if you are down. So there's like a really, there's like really dark messaging around it. So you're most likely to kind of fix it. And the final idea here, I think we got 212. So that's interesting. That means we have 25 ideas today instead of 24 is solve product discovery entirely. Have a thought out search, have CTS for everything. For example, in this experience, very well cadenced. You've got search, you've got some brand related CTS, you've got categories, and you've got search results because you're searching for a certain keyword. Make it intuitive. The value of this is realized in the long run. We've seen businesses and then their customers kind of coming back, and your customers also fall into the habit of a certain experience over a period of time, and then you see conversion rate fluctuate if you change it too often. This is, I think, so we picked this example intentionally. We've shown this example before in a different conversation, but very simply put, if you see what's happening here is the how-to of the product is mentioned. But the reason we picked this example is you don't need anybody else to implement this for you. It's actually added as an image as a part of the gallery or the carousel of images for the product. This is obviously a massive brand, a mess, and in their case, they could have done whatever they wanted. But you could actually implement this without A/B testing. Just go and do it. Whatever product you're selling, it's fine to publish a how-to, a dimensions detail, a materials detail in a visual form, and if possible, ideally, you could also, if you have any certifications, any quality related, stamps of approvals of some kind from authorities, you could definitely publish that. And you don't need to re-engineer your pages. You could actually just land it, put it in the image carousel, and your customers that are in the consideration stage, customers who are taking you seriously. So out of the total set of new customers you have, the mid-funnel people are gonna actually thank you for this. The next is product description. So this is a repeat after me sort of comment. So I want you to repeat after me, although you can't unmute yourself. The most important part of your product page is the product description. You wouldn't believe it but especially if you're selling higher value products, your customers are spending time on it, they're reading what you're writing, and they're making a decision basis that. And there are hundreds of ways of making your product description useful. But the simple example I wanted to put here is add a lot of images. Very simple. They're explaining everything, all the key features, key benefits, etc. But anything and everything you're selling can be visualized. So I'm sure that's possible. But even if that's not something that's possible for what you're selling, or you might not have great imagery, or you don't want to kind of do it. That's another thing that I've seen is that a lot of times, business founders have a bucket list of, items they want to add to the site, but they never go about to do it because they want to do it in like the most perfect looking way, and then it never gets done. So I would just say execute a great product description. Copywriting has gotten, very simple these days. There was a time when marketing copywriting used to be extremely verbose. It needed to have heavy adjectives, and it was just not relatable. At that time, that was considered exciting because people liked that, but that's not true today, right? The best brands actually communicate in the most simple way, right? When iPhone's screen got bigger, they just said it's bigger. That's all they said, right? And when they got faster, they just say it's faster than you've ever seen before. So it's just keeping it extremely simple. And I think if you need help with copy, just reply to one of my newsletters. I'll connect you with a couple of people who can help you with that. But generally speaking, please go out of your way and tell your customers the story they deserve to hear about your products. This is, I actually wanted to keep this example because of the execution, because it's so good. Generally speaking, it's very tacky, running out of stock or anything on those lines. This is a very classy execution of something that is a visual cue. It is, pushing people in the right direction. It's the product itself looks outrageous to me. So I think this just kind of does the job extremely well. But what they're doing is, there's FOMO here. There's really good execution of the communication in terms of how it looks aesthetically. And it also, kind of creates that sense of urgency. There are other ways of doing it as well. A lot of businesses do it in terms of how many are left in stock, etc. I think that's gotten a little old. I recently heard of a travel site that got sued for it as well, where they were faking the number of seats available on flights to have, rush people into booking. So be careful about it and be authentic. That your customers will obviously love that. Um, Sale prices. So this is another important one. Um, I chose this for a very different reason from actually what's written here. The visual contrast is important, highlight it, and that's kind of basic advice. But there's another thing that's happening here, which is that they're not making the sale price look like they're not letting the brand get diluted because they're on sale, right? So what's really happening here is it's pre-sale, first of all, it's not sale, right? And the second thing that's happening here, even with pre-sale, you can actually pay in installments. So BNPL is massive. I think we all know that. We all have seen the numbers for November and December sales all across the US and other parts of the world, I'm sure will agree. I know we have people today joining from UK and a couple of other places. Um, but generally speaking, there's a way to do discounts in pricing without diluting the brand. And I think I would recommend don't over intellectualize it, generally speaking. But here there's so much happening here. There's the timer, there's the pre-sale messaging, the pre-order messaging, and then it kind of goes to its original price. I can guarantee you, when they run a sale on this product, they would call it a sale, but I'm sure that the price will not be as low as pre-sale. So they'll think it through. They'll not, kind of move the price around as so much that it loses trust, essentially. Split payments, I already spoke about this. I'm going to skip this point. I think we all know how important they are. Brand. So I think this is again story and value prop. Again, a really basic point. As I said, there are some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about today is going to be best practices. So again, a really simple one. Keep it visual, keep it very clear, and make sure that it's visible. These are things your eyes will not see, but your customers' minds will see them. So this is another very interesting thing that, so again, you have to be a brand that is able to do this. But actually, I've seen very small brands also do this and form community for themselves, right? So that's something that I feel is heavily underrated, and I've shared this idea before as well, where the easiest way to form a community is to do a pre-order or a pre-sale list. So if you're launching a product, let's say you are in the business of, let's take the example of everyday carry items. So we have a client that it's actually a really large everyday carry business. So the knives and these kind of lights and whatnot. So all kinds of different things. I'm actually a big knife guy, so I have a bunch. But for them, for example, if they were generally launching products in the $100 to $200 range, and they launch a really tiny one of a kind pocket knife, which is $50, $50. They would do a pre-sale and ask people to register for it so that they get a notification when the product actually launches. What we have seen happening is over a month, you have 1,000, 2,000 people opting in for something like that. Even even if it's 500, it's fine. But what that does for you is you now have a community of 500 people who are waiting for the same thing at the same time. You take all of those 500 people, invite them into a Facebook group, and that's your brand group. That's your first Facebook group, a completely new channel you've created, or even a Instagram broadcast channel now. You've created a completely fresh channel, and they've joined you there. And now you have that captive audience where every status update is going to reach them for free. And group notifications actually land up first thing on the Facebook feed. So when you log, even when you start your own Facebook, unless somebody very close to you has posted something, group notifications will actually land up on top. So I think anticipation is good. You've got to be able to use it as the right tool, and leverage your brand in the right way. So I think this is another really important point. We keep bringing it up because I still see this. So, to be honest with you, we do free audits, right? If you want, just reply to the message that I sent you after this webinar. But we essentially do full blown free tear downs of website experiences and tell them everything that's going wrong. And I'm happy to take a look at your site if you want. But the point is that we still see that businesses not being extremely candid and fair, both candid and fair about their delivery, returns, payments, etc. information. That's the most important thing about transactions. If you're not very open, fair, and prominent about this information, you're losing the customer as is. Lack of information is actually really bad. It's the worst thing. But if there is information and it's not either, if your policies are not good, or if they're not complete, that's even worse. It takes, lack of information gives discomfort. But if you have information and it's incorrect, or if it's unfair, it takes trust away. So you have 100% lost a customer. So you've got to really think through your policy, because think about customer lifetime value, and then think about how much money you want to spend converting a customer. So if you're a brand that just makes that one sale and that's it, that's how much a customer is going to buy from you, you don't need to worry about it. But if you're a brand that, generally speaking, sees a lot of repeat, about 60, 70 plus plus customers come back and buy from you, you are essentially, then you need to make your money in the second purchase. The first purchase is essentially just a gateway. Because generally speaking, even for larger value brands, customers end up buying a smaller value product from you first, and then they upgrade to something larger. I don't know anyone who's bought that massive Louis Vuitton, massive, tote bag as the first bag they ever bought from Louis. Everybody has gone and first gotten either a crossbody or a wallet or a small, or some other small bag from Louis Vuitton before they jumped onto the big one. Okay. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. So 5 more points. We're going to get into the checkout. Really basic, very, very fundamental points. Once again, I'm open for questions. So please start putting up, because because I normally ask for questions all the way at the end, and then there's this awkward silence for 3 minutes. So if you have questions, please start articulating them in chat, or just put them in the Q&A, and I'll take them up as soon as I'm done with the next 4 or 5 points. They're really basic, straightforward points, but I'll bring in as much information as I can. So this is another thing that I've seen brands missing a lot. Your cart, of course, people have added things to the cart, but that doesn't mean that they are done. Like, they're not converted yet. So your cart abandonment number tells you that. So have vibrant, large images of whatever they picked in the cart. In a lot of cases, it's really tiny and it's not useful. I think it makes a big difference. And we've tested this several times and it has worked out each time. So I strongly recommend doing this. The other thing about cart and checkout is something I'll cover in the next few points. But the keyword I wanted to keep in mind is focus. Is that let your customers be focused on the journey you want them to take. And that's going to be the theme in all the examples that I'll show you. So for example, in this one-page checkout that you see here, the reason it's one-page checkout is that the customer now knows that this is the only thing they have to do to get past this. Okay, so the left pane there's nothing to fill. Only the middle pane has to be filled. If it's a well-set website, you click on the email, everything else will autofill. So the only thing left for the customer to do is either PayPal or just enter their card details and get done. So one-page checkouts work really well. Also because, with multi-page checkouts, the customer, the feeling is that there's a journey to take, kind of like the Shopify's default checkout that's one thing that I personally dislike about it, is the steps that it kind of has to walk you through. You kind of pick things and do that. Vertical checkout flows work as well. There are only, this is also one page. But what this is also doing is the same thing as the one-page checkout. Both of these checkouts are actually telling the customer everything that they need to do to finish the purchase. There is no unknown here. There is no unknown page that you will be taken to enter the next set of details and kind of do that. The other thing that's happening here is there's no login, right? So it's not does not start with a login screen. And that's another big win for this brand. Essentially, they're not asking people to create an account and do that. They will just assume everything is there or not there, whatever it is. You add your name, phone, email, save and continue, delivery options, payments, and finish. Now, if you were an existing customer, this order goes into your list of orders. If you were a new customer, you get registered and you are now opted in. Really simple. The next one is adding a bidder. So now you've sorted your checkout out. You have whatever else you needed. You have a single page checkout, maybe a vertical one, etc. Now you've got to bring your brand into the picture. So design it well, kind of tie everything together. I think I would encourage you all to visit this website and a few other ones that are out there. But some cases, some brand experiences, you can actually feel them across the board. I understand. And okay, first of all, please don't do this if you're a brand that's not in the second, I mean, I call it the second phase, but basically, if you don't have 2 or 3 channels of traffic actively working for you, that's the first qualifier. And the second qualifier, ideally, is if you have surplus profits after taking money away. So why I say that is because design is a luxury. Aesthetics are a luxury. Unless, of course, you're a brand that's kind of trying to position itself that way. A design agency, a site development agency will take ages to develop something that you truly love, because you will articulate it, they will build it, there'll be feedback, there'll be several versions. So I think design is a luxury and brands should in their early stage not invest in it. But once you have that, once you've crossed your, I would say, $100,000 a month sort of threshold, that's the time to go all out on design and just make sure your brand experience looks extremely cohesive, right from the ad that they discover you on to the entire shopping experience, from the home page to the checkout page and the thank you page, the email communication, the packaging, everything. And then finally, this is again the keyword that I spoke about was focus. So what's common across all of the checkouts that I showed today is they had only one thing, which is the checkout information. They did not have a hello bar telling about offers. There was no cross sell. There was no homepage. There was no categories, call to actions. There was nothing. The only thing you could do on that page is checkout. And that's the most important insight I can give you today. If you want to change one thing, stop distracting your customers. In fact, I encourage you to do this. Go on Amazon, add something to your cart, go to checkout after picking your address. You cannot even click on the Amazon logo to go back to the homepage. Nothing else on that page is clickable except for what you should be doing to checkout. So even Amazon knows that you should not allow people to go back. The only way for you to go back from the Amazon checkout is if you hit back button twice when it takes you to cart, or if you just go to the URL bar and type amazon.com again. That's the only case in which you'll be able to go back. Okay. All right, so those were some of the insights that we had today. 25 really quick best practices. I've taken about 30 minutes, 35 minutes to walk you through some of the fundamentals of improving your chances to convert that first time customers. But before I allow you to go, I have like just one simple nugget. Is more often than not, the problem is not these simple things. It's the intent with which your customer is coming, what you're showing them, and how you're justifying that. And then the third factor is the journey and the experience, and all of those things, right? What we are doing here is we are getting rid of the speed bumps. That's conversion optimization. But if the fundamentals are not right, of the expectation you set with them when you show them the ad, when you do everything, and then they land up on the website, they look at the product, they look at the price, they look at the look and feel of the product. So product images, product price, product name, shipping. These are the 4 most important things. When they look at all of that, if that's cohesive, connected, and you've reached out to the right customer, you have a product market fit, as they say, the transaction will happen. All of this will not matter. All of this will it'll give you that 15, 20, 30% delta improvement, but it will not change your life. Okay. So just, go very deep into the kind of demand you generate. Why do those people click on the ad they click? What is the psychology behind it? And for the ones who bought from you, what made them pick you? What were they comparing you against? Why did they pick your product at the price that they picked it, and what did they do with it once they got it. There's a very important insight, in fact, that we saw is there's a very famous shoe brand, a startup actually. I'm not gonna name them because I have a lot of data on them. I'll probably tell you something. For them, their North Star metric, which is the number one, metric that they kind of track, is actually not sales, is not trying to sell more shoes. Their metric is how many people wear their shoes, right? So what matters to them is if enough people were wearing our shoes, they would automatically sell, because we think our shoes are so good looking that everybody should wear them when they're going to the mall, when they're going out to meet their friends, and so on and so forth. So that's an amazing insight, right? Because now what that meant for them was is when this shoe is worn is when it has its most value. So all of their advertising, all of their conversion, everything shows the shoes being worn. It's like a tongue twister, but it shows the shoes being worn in different settings by different kinds of people. And that's what makes it relatable, and that's what makes it tick. So the insight is in your customer, the insight is in the data. That's quick 2 minutes of we call it gyan in Hindi, which means knowledge, but like coming from a guru in some form. But I hope it's helpful. I'm open for questions. I'm going to wait for a couple of minutes before we conclude it. I'm glad to be able to gift you back a couple of your 15 minutes or so. Yeah. Okay, so Dimitri has a question. Did you do tests on description as sentences versus bullet points? We started to hide product description in a sentence being accordion and display 3, 4 key benefits, but most time they are the same for each product category. So I think you might want to see I think we might want to see the volume of people that are seeing each and if it's statistically significant as a result. See, generally speaking, in fact, I run a massive sales team, and when we are talking to the customer in an email as well, we prefer bullets over paragraphs for obvious reasons. They're easier to consume. But I would want you to think of something else. Instead of description versus bullets, focus on this. Focus on the first 3 words of both the descriptions and the bullets. That's what matters. The first 3 words of um, any new conversation that you're trying to start. Okay, I'll give you an example actually. Just read these 2 testimonials here. I'll give you a second. Which one are you more likely to read? It's the second one, I'm guessing. Just please put in the chat. But generally speaking, the first 3 ones of the first one is had the best. So it's going in that direction. She's going to talk about whatever, right? But the second one is I wouldn't hesitate. So the first 3. So in fact, I remember I wrote this LinkedIn recommendation for somebody that worked in my team some time ago. And the recommendation is actually all negative. And that person actually told me 5 or 6 years ago that this recommendation is something that people have brought up to him when he's been interviewing in places, etc. So that recommendation starts with don't hire this person if you want somebody who just completely annihilates your sales quotas. Okay, so that's how it starts, and everybody reads it, and everybody think, hey, this is like the most odd recommendation I've ever seen. So just focus on the first 3 words of the bullet or the paragraph, and then A/B test. Maybe I think that should solve it for you. And then of course, so my point is, the larger point is messaging matters more, but the first 3 words are the reason people will actually even indulge in what you're trying to tell them. I hope that answers your question. But interesting question, for sure. Second, okay, perfect. So I was right. I'm not sure if that's true for everybody else as well. Any other questions, folks? I'm happy to. Just gonna see if some of my chat window is okay. There it is. Perfect. We're gonna give it another couple of minutes and we can. Okay, I don't think there's any other questions coming up. Folks, thanks so much for joining us. Some familiar faces here. So fantastic to see you all. And I look forward to continue. Okay, I'm waiting. Got it. Sorry about that, Eric. Waiting. So yeah, I think we have a question coming in. We're just gonna take that and then go from there. What can you do instead of a rotating banner on a homepage? Okay, I'm gonna show you what you can do. That's a good question. Can you confirm that you can see my entire screen? You can actually. Okay. So here's the first fold homepage and see how much is happening here. The banner is rotating. Uh, the banner has CTAs. The banner has CTAs on, I mean, of course, this is not a banner, but you've got category CTAs, but the banner itself also has CTAs. There's actually another very interesting implementation that I saw is the banner actually was a product carousel and it was done extremely well. I'll try and find that link and I'll put it in my next update for you all. But it essentially had two products for each, and then it says shop this design and shop this design on both sides, and it was a really brilliant image of those products being used. So productive uses essentially of it's clickable, usable real estate. So the only expectation is to use it in a wise way. That's really what it is. Uh, what can you do instead of okay, so that's done. So what is the maximum number of recommendation blocks for a PDP? Jack, that's a great question. I know your business. So generally speaking, you have to think about this way. I would not, I would actually want to experiment with that, to be honest, but I would not want to spoil customers for choices. And knowing, so you're in the business of bags. So generally speaking, knowing that a customer is looking at a certain type of product, there are only two things you can do. Either show them more products of the same type, which could be better value for them, because really speaking, the Pareto principle applies everywhere. And if they're looking at, say, the briefcase category, there are 20% of your briefcases that drive all of your revenue, briefcase revenue. So you're going to show them that. The only other thing you could do is switch them. So is that they saw this, they don't find it interesting. And here are the two other things that the rest of the world finds amazing about me. Here's what those two things are. So it's a lot. That's really pretty much what I would do, with each of the categories that people are in. So I would show them the bestseller of the category of the product they're looking, and then I would show them the overall bestseller of the business to see if they want to switch. And if they've switched, then that logic repeats. So it shows them the bestseller of the category that they switched to, as well as the bestsellers overall. I hope that answers the question, but I would not spoil them for choice is something that I would definitely want to put out there. I see so many people complaining about conversions going down with Shopify's default one-page checkout versus three-page. Did you split test this? Um, so Shopify, the unpaid version does not allow you to split test on your checkouts. That's a bummer. That's why they want you to pay them more money. I don't blame them, but they're in the business of software and they're gonna, juice every last penny out of you, no matter what. But yes, we've seen results with Shopify checkout are not that great. So my only advice to people who are on Shopify checkout is to leave the checkout alone. It's basically that assume your checkout is operating at level X. Can you send better people to the checkout? Can you figure out a way? Can you find a way to send higher intent people, find a way to send more people to the checkout? So if you solve that part of the journey, the checkout solves for itself because you can't really edit a lot in there. Instead, people just do the opposite of that. They add upsell and cross sell in the checkout. So that has the opposite effect. You've given the customer one more decision to make. So you got it's like proposing on a boat. You got to say yes or you got to go off my boat. So you have to make sure that you do a good job of not spoiling the customer with choices. So kind of connects to what I just said to Chuck. But yeah, so Shopify checkout, I'm sorry about the experience, but you got to make sure you're sending people with higher intent into the checkout instead of solving for the checkout, or just upgrade to Shopify Plus and then go all out with crafting the checkout of your dreams. That's the way out. Complementary related products. What if we also include recently viewed? Too much we could, so we could do that. For example, the I think the maximum limit of recommendations, the company that does it best is Amazon. They just show you everything and anything on the face of earth, right? Even in your product page recommendations, because they're in the marketplace business. I just really think that if you look at your product page, let's start with the basics. The product communication, image quality, story, price, all of those things are there. and then the customer is exploring more. There are a few things we could do actually. Instead of the, recently viewed is fine. In fact, the execution of recently viewed, I would not do it as a part of the product page. I would do it as a part of the overall experience. So maybe a drawer on the side somewhere, like this. Like this could be a recently viewed CTA, and it would just slide out on one of the side. I don't know if we did that for you, Chuck, but we can maybe take a look at that. But the other thing I would do in recommendations on the product page, instead of adding products, I would add collections or categories. Hey, we also do X, Y, and Z. Do you want to go take a look? So that might be the interesting way for you to send people to another journey where they discover something or potentially find something that they like. Recently viewed would actually send them back to something they've seen in that visit. So that's it. Recently, the right place for recently viewed is actually the homepage or wherever they are landing from your email traffic or anywhere else. I would in fact also put recently viewed products in your emails, all of your emails. And to be honest, the right way to do this is to do it, to evaluate, to measure, and then to do it again. Iteration is a superpower. So you've got to be able to use, and we all have it. Eric, I hope I was able to answer your question about the banner. I'm sorry I couldn't wait earlier for your question. I hope I was able to answer it. Perfect. Thanks, Chuck. Thanks so much. You're far too kind, Dimitri. Happy to do that, Derek. I'll be in touch. We'll take a look at it. Thanks so much. I'll just copy that and keep it with me. All right, perfect. Folks, this is going to continue. This is what I think this is our first webinar for 2024. I'm not sure. Harsh, if he's on the call, maybe he can tell if this was the first one. But I think it was a pretty good one. Some good insights here. We're going to publish this on the website. Thanks so much. We're going to do another one. The next one, I'm going to get a bit more controversial. So I'll think about it hard and we'll get some fresh content. Always happy to look at your websites. Thanks so much. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Weekends around the corner. Hang in there. It's going to work out. Yep. Thanks so much. Have a good one. Bye.